But the Equality of Opportunities Committee Assembly took on an inquiry into how accessible railway stations were for people with disabilities. And all right, perhaps I had a bit of a vested interest in that, because I like to know that I can get on and off the train as well. So in a way, we started the consultation back in February of this year, and we issued what I thought was quite an extensive call for evidence, both written and oral, and over 150 groups were targeted. And we had 59 responses, and that's actually an excellent response when you think that some of the inquiries that go on from the Assembly get 1 or 2 responses. And in fact, our committee's response was cited in how committees should go out there and seek the views of people that they're trying to make lives better for. We had 4 oral sessions, and we had people in Guide Dogs for the Blind came in, the Norman Moore from the Deaf Association Wales came in, and that is in itself, for some of our committee members, was in itself a learning curve about how we take oral evidence from people who have got a disability. And it was quite interesting to see that we had to just be aware of the fact that you have lip readers and we have signers here today, but we had to be aware of that on the committee in terms of getting the evidence from the people that we needed. We also had the Deputy First Minister in, who's responsible for transport, and of course we had the train operators in. And it was quite interesting when the train operators came. We brought Arriva in and we brought Network Rail in together. And the reason we did that was so that they couldn't blame one another. So what we didn't want to do was have Arriva in one week and for them to say to us, it's all Network Rail's fault. We'd love to do that, and it's all Network Rail's fault. And then Network Rail come in the following week and Network Rail goes, well, you know, we'd love to do that, but the train operators just won't do it. So we had them both in together. And I have to say, Arriva did give a good account of themselves. And
in the past 18 months, wheelchair users have been left stranded on both Prestatyn and Rail with no access to emergency telephones, and they've been unstaffed. Emergency services were called to Rail to manually lift one lady off the station when the lift was out of use. I hope this situation doesn't occur when the refurbishments are finished at Prestatyn and the lift is also included. Disabled people would prefer to be treated the same as everybody else and not to have to book 24 hours in advance. I personally resent the fact I can no longer be impulsive and join my friends on last-minute jaunts or have a fellow wheelchair user accompany me. On top of this, we have to pay for this inconvenient process imposed on us by a service provider. It is 15 years since the introduction of the Disability Discrimination Act, and service providers were supposed to make reasonable adjustments by 2004. I find it disappointing that it is 2010. It is still hit and miss as to whether transport providers provide equal opportunities for disabled people. There seems to be very little accountability and very little we can do about it. Thank you.
For the rest of my brief presentation today, I wanted to highlight some of the findings of a couple of our key research tools. Our bedrock research tool is the National Passenger Survey, which is a satisfaction survey that we carry out twice each year with 25,000 rail passengers across Britain to get a view on their views of rail services in Britain. About 1,000 of those journeys are conducted in, surveys are conducted in Wales, about 700 on Arriva Trains Wales, and the balance on First Great Western and Virgin and that sort of thing as well. And we ask a whole series of questions to get an overall rating of what people think of their journey overall, and also on individual aspects of their journey, both at the station and on the train itself. And I'll be providing you with an oversight of some of those results in a moment. In addition to the National Passenger Survey, we also do a number of individual research projects as well on a range of topics. One in particular I'll be focusing on today is the assisted passenger reservation service that we've just been hearing Karen struggle with, and effectively that's the system of booked assistance that passengers can use to access the railway, and which the rail companies are required to provide. We do additional research, and wherever it makes sense, we do look to include additional questions and consultation with disabled passengers to get their insights into whatever aspect of rail travel it is that we're looking at. So to look at some of the findings of the National Passenger Survey, that is our measure of passenger satisfaction in Wales overall. So this is all passengers. Overall satisfaction with rail services in Wales, and that's all operators, is quite high, currently at 88% and higher than Britain overall at 83%. What we tend to find is that satisfaction with aspects of the on-train experience, so capacity, it's the ability to get a seat, the comfort of seating, toilets, is generally fairly similar to Britain overall, some lower, some higher. Where Wales has continued to struggle for a number of years and where we continue to sort of lobby hard for improvements is satisfaction with station factors. That's facilities, availability of staff, station toilets and that sort of thing as well. And in most of these areas, the figures in Wales tend to be lower than the average for Britain overall. So that's the overall picture. Looking specifically at disabled passengers, what I've done here is done a further analysis of the NPS over the last 3 years to get a robust sample size to be able to compare the scores for people who have indicated they have a disability with passengers overall. And the categories I've highlighted are those where there's a statistically significant difference between the scores for all passengers and passengers with a disability. So that is where it's not just random chance that there's a difference, there's actually a demonstrable, measurable difference. And you'll see that in some areas they're higher scores, in some areas they're lower scores. It's interesting to note that there's 30 measures in the passenger survey. Only 4 of those relate to staff, and yet three of the areas where there is a significant difference for scores all relate to staff. The availability of staff, I've sort of repeated it there, and it's also got jumbled up, so let me explain that. One's the availability of station staff, where there's a significantly lower score by disabled passengers, and one's the availability of train staff, whereas in fact there's a significantly higher score by disabled passengers, which and I'll be interested in your thoughts, but my guess is that's because in using the APRS, they're actually coming into contact with staff more often than passengers overall.
Arriva Trains Wales, who are we? Well, we're part of the Arriva Group. We're also responsible under the Arriva umbrella for the cross-country franchise, and as you might be aware, more recently in the last month or so, we've actually been taken over by DB, Deutsche Bahn, and they already acquired EWS, Chiltern Trains, WSMR, so we're now under one umbrella. So, dare I say, we're state-owned by the Germans. Well, we are. So we have a Von Yehren Express, and we're contracted by the Welsh Assembly Government to run what is now the Wales and Borders franchise. And that is predominantly all the railways within Wales. But if you want to get from North to South Wales, you've got to go through England. So we have an element of borders. So, yes, from Shrewsbury to Cardiff, from Chester to Manchester, from Shrewsbury through to Birmingham International Airport. That is predominantly what we run at the moment. A bit more about our stations and our station statistics. Yes, we've already heard a lot were built at a time when little thought was given to access problems. The majority of our stations are from the Victorian era. 221 of those stations that we have are actually in Wales. 174 of them are unstaffed and only 13 are fully staffed. The more alarming statistics, 104 of those stations, 47%, less than half, are actually fully accessible. 117 are not fully accessible to what we might call the older and the disabled. So what are we trying to do to alleviate all that with what monies we can actually bring in? Well, we're hoping to improve our accessibility. Working with Network Rail, and Network Rail actually own the whole of the railway network in Great Britain. We as train operating companies lease the stations from Network Rail. So we were fortunate, 15 years, we lease our stations from Network Rail. We lease the amount of time that our trains are on the track from Network Rail. We lease our trains themselves from train operating companies known as Roscoes. which I think predominantly are angel trains or portable trains, and they're owned by the banks. So everything we have, we lease from somebody else. So working with Network Rail, we're trying to now improve accessibility.